Hello there everybody and welcome to episode 2 of my tutorial series for Songs of Syx version 61. I'm Icon and we're going to pick up things where we left them at the end of the first episode. We are the proud owners of a handful of shacks and we have 11 inhabitants under our control. We've set up a steady supply of food in form of a fruit farm, a hunter, and we've got a small storage house and a small dormitory where people can sleep at. So far, so good. This episode will be now focused upon transitioning from survival into development. So we're going to set up our first production facilities today, and we're also going to go and set up trading today, and I'll show you how the money system and all works here. And by the end of the episode, with some luck, we'll also get into research, and there's going to be lots of small things in between, I bet. So that's the rough roadmap for this episode. Now, first things first, what I really want to do before I do anything else is we're going to set up a mass grave. This is a necessity. I'd like to build a graveyard right away, but we don't have the technology for that yet, so we're going to set up a mass grave right away. The thing is, it's always better to have the facility down before you need it with this game. So this costs me only 4 stone, but if somebody dies, we'll have a place where we can bury him. If somebody dies, there's nothing worse than them just lying around and decomposing out there. That attracts illness, makes people unhappy, and therefore you'll be odd doing that anyways. So rather start with that right away. And the mass grave also has a late game purpose, because this is where all the nasty raiders will be buried at. Our citizens deserve better, but we're still gonna keep it for the later usage when many bodies come around. Now, we got that. Now, another thing that I want to bring up here, civics-wise, is the eatery. The eatery is giving our people a place where they can just sit down and eat like civilized beings. So this is a really, really good thing. We're going to bring that up next. These buildings allow you to get more citizens into your town. Without stuff like the eatery, let's make that large enough for 1 employee. Yeah, let's make a small one. Without stuff like that, you won't attract new immigrants. It's, so to say, like, if your city is not attractive enough, nobody wants to get there. But if they hear that there's a place to sleep at, a place to eat at, and food for everybody, they might come. And if you start building more and more fancy things, more and more people will be eager to live here. That's the rough simplification of the migration system. I'm going to get into the numbers of that later down the road, but I think it's important that you already know the basics, how it works, whether or not you get new migrants into your city or not. And mostly it's about making your city more attractive. If you want to have more people via this way, make your city more attractive in some way. We're going to explore that, of course, in more detail along the series, but this should help you to get an idea about what happens there. So, winter is over. Our people are taking the shrubs off the field, taking the weeds out, and then they resow for the next year. And then we get new food. So last year we had a very, very small production of food, but that's been because we set it up too late. Or, oh, wait a sec, it's been just bad weather. Oh, whatever. Right now we can't produce here because we're out of wood. If these exclamation marks show up, that means you're out of resource. So let's chop some more trees. I'm also getting tired of chopping trees like that, but before we can set up a real industry for timber, we'll have to have a couple of extra people here, sadly. So if you hit the button 4 another time after you've hit it once for speeding up, you can also go for 250 times speed. Like this right now is 25 speed. You can put that up even further if you want to, but use with care. So now we got an eatery too. This will also need an employee, and basically what it'll do, it takes food and it shares it among the people, and that's making people happier because they can grab their food out of a place like that instead of just the warehouse. I guess that's a positive thing. And now you see there's a green flashing here. That's because our people get happier. Okay, so the next thing I want to do here is I want to set up some processing. We're gaining a lot of leather that we don't use here at any point. So what can we do out of that? We could refine that, or no, we could craft that at a tailor. A tailor can do clothing out of leather, and that's the first kind of refining that we're going to do here. I'm going to set up a tailor, well, somewhere around here. At the beginning of the game, you really shouldn't worry too much about how to set up things. You'll get the grip of the larger scale designs anyways in the future. So we're now setting this up in a way that we got 1.2 employees, but for the first time we now have a problem. We need metal to build that workbench, and we don't have that. And without a workbench, no tailor. So what can we do? Crafting metal on your own is a pretty difficult endeavor. So for that regard, you might already have guessed it, we're going to use trading. Whoopsie. Thought with the keyword trade I'd find them, but I was wrong. No, we'll find them here at the logistics. We need an import and export depot. So, as you might have already guessed it, import brings stuff to your place, export sells your stuff. So we're going to set up one export space and one import space. As you see here, these come as clean templates where you don't need to set up anything around them anymore. So that's a pretty easy thing to do. So once these are set up, we have all the necessary tools available to do trading. There we go. So the import depot, we're going to use that and tell them we want metal, because that's what we want. Here now you see we want to have it tells us that we want an import level, and we also see how much stuff's coming towards us and how much the buying price will be. Warehouses 0. That's bad. That means we don't have any crates allocated for metal, so that won't work because of that in the first place. The next thing is buy price 60. Up here you see money, and we don't have any. So we're going to sell something first. So let's head over to the export depot, which actually has an employee because somebody has to sell these things actively. The import depot doesn't have an employee because traders will come and just dump that stuff there. Now, I'd say we're going to sell our leather now until we have earned enough money, until we can afford enough metal to build that tailor. So we select leather, and now you see the same menus as we had it with the metal, and now we gotta explain that export level. So this defines at which threshold stuff should be sold. If this is full on this side, you'll sell everything of that stockpile. Export 100% of warehouse stock. If you put it down like that, you won't sell anything. Export 0% of warehouse stock. The cool part about this game is, if you set up something like this here, export 50% of warehouse stock, it tells you that it'll sell everything above 127 items. This way, you can configure how much of your overproduction you want to sell. For starters, we're going to export everything. We want to get that metal in as quick as possible, because the clothing isn't that super important as of yet. It'll make our people happier, but we'll be unable to craft any clothing without that. So, we have another problem. We have no crates for metal. Let's fix that. The warehouse has plenty of room to do so, so we're going to click it, and here you got that refurnish room icon. So you click that, and here you get the building menu back. So we're going to set up another line of crates here, and while we're at it, we're going to put up more of these. So something like that. So now we got more storage room, construct, and there we go. This is our new construction job. And now what'll happen is our trader is carting the leather over from the hunter's place over to the export cab. So now we're gaining our stuff back. And the first fruit harvest is going to be in quite soon, I bet. But for now, our hunter is keeping our people brilliantly alive. So this number here, by the way, is the amount of days of food stored. So this way you can foresee how well your stockpiles are developing, and the graph here shows you also how much in and how much out movement you had. These graphs, though, they are a little bit unreliable. From my own experiences, there's always a little bit of a margin of error here. And also what happened in between, my warehouses were empty. Why? Because every building that's being refurnished can't be used during that time. So for a moment, we had no storage anymore. That's why. So we're now going to allocate one chest to metal, because we can't import metal without that. So let's get back to the import station. And here we do the same thing like for the export, but just we tell the game how much we want to buy. So for starters, I'm totally fine with 10%. Import me 25 units of metal, because that's going to be costly enough. 1 unit of metal is 60 gold at last. So we haven't talked about the profitability here. So the sell price of the leather is 4. So we're going to sell off our level 4 coins each. You might assume how much we need to hunt until we have the metal for the tailor, but it is worth the trouble. So in between all our endeavors, what can we do? So you see, we don't have any new migrants, and our workforce is down to 2. We can't do much about that. We've already set up a dormitory, we've already set up an eatery. I could set up a well, and I think I'll do that too, because the body of water here is nice and dandy and all, but maybe our people want to wash themselves back here as well. So let's place down the well here. And this is another little trick to make the city more attractive. Use these things if you want to have more citizens. And another thing we're going to set up soon is the library, but we can't right now. Here, the library is where you produce science, but one thing at a time. Let's wait if the construction of the well will bring us more workforce here. Hurrah! We got some place to wash at. So every little bit of service fills that bar, and as you see here, we have now 1 immigrant ready for us. So, like I said before, I'm growing tired of harvesting the wood we need manually, so let's automate that as our next step. So every body of forest that you see here will regrow wood after some time. You already see that here. There's this reddish stuff here on the ground depicting that here's always going to be forest back after some time. So we're going to set up now a woodcutter. So get over here to the work tab and set up the woodcutter. The woodcutter needs to be above forest area. Surprise. And we're going to set it up like that, like 15 on 8. As you see here, there's also a worker amount depicted there. 2 workers sounds brilliant. Another thing which is quite practical, but we're not going to do that right now because it's early in the game. You can set up these things larger than that once you have more workforce and just leave the workers on a low level. But since we don't have much workers to begin with, we're going to set up our storage here and set up some auxiliaries. But you already see it here, we have another thing. So furniture is necessary for that. We can't do that as of yet, so we're going to set up our next thing, and that's the furniture shop. Here goes the carpenter. So since we already decided that the woodcutter will be residing here, we might as well set up our carpentry somewhere in the vicinity. So let's set it up there. And here you see this thing is being built without walls. I'm not a big fan. Click that, get walls, set up a workbench, set up an auxiliary station, and just get that thing going. So sadly, we still have to cut our wood manually now, but you already can see how the next steps will go. Now we're waiting for money to come in. And as you see here, we have now 1,100 coins available. So that means our first export was a success. Meanwhile, we're filling the carpenter's shop. We still have a little bit of workforce left. And to make more people happy now, we're going to need more services and the like. So let's wait it out. Speed up to 250 time. It's pretty useful. And now we got our carpenters, and also we got only a workforce of 1 left. Quite sad. And we're going to use the tree cutting here one more time. And there we go. So our carpenter is now making furniture for us. So let's allocate a chest for that as well. And one for that stuff. Here. And now we can set up the woodcutter. You could also set up the woodcutter without the help of the furniture maker, carpenter. But I'm personally not a big fan of building without auxiliaries. They just bring too much bonus, and efficiency is in these things pretty important. As you see here, we have also a lot of trouble setting this up without hitting spots where there are trees. It's also a good reason why you want to make the woodcutters a little bit larger, but here we go. Efficiency 100% achieved. This is now for 3 workers, and it's going to need 13 units of furniture, so it's kind of a long-term project for us now. But that's okay. And we got now enough workforce to see this through. And now we are waiting for stuff to get done, while we're also waiting for metal to be imported. But all in all, our village is prospering. We're doing well. We're getting ahead. And now we just have to wait until things are done. The carpenter is doing his work really, really slowly. Because it's, well, carpentry is per se a very slow-rolling thing. But the woodcutter also needs stone, and we don't have enough stone. Luckily, we got more than enough rock here that we can just grab from the ground. So you don't have any issues here either. Say, did I forget to set up crates for fruit, or no? Just haven't had any harvest yet. Ah, here. Finally, the first harvest is coming on in. And now we're really set. We got food for 66 days. That means we're severely overproducing, but you know, it's not really an issue. Also, we're harvesting wild veg. Let's set up a crate for that as well. And now we have to wait until the woodcutter is finally being constructed. But we can, in the meantime, use that metal we got. So we're going to set up the tailor now. As soon as I find him again. So let's set up a little tailor's shop here. Because now we got the necessary metal. These small workshops are okay for starters, but keep in mind that you will need to expand your city accordingly in the future. This is some nice spot to start at, but this won't get you anywhere in the future. So here we need furniture as well. So, well, now we just need to wait for the furniture. I didn't bring up a larger carpenter's shop here mainly because you don't have the workforce early on. That's just as it is, and it's better to accept that. You are kind of, the early game is kind of a slow burn here. Your growth is, well, not that super quick. But as you see here, we're getting the materials in. Slowly stuff is getting made. And there's also a nice moment to notice that the moment I set up the construction job for the tailor, they ignored the woodcutter. So that's what I meant with not too many building jobs at once. It's just like that. Your people will ignore the fact that they got work there. But now we got the tailor shop, which is producing clothing, but it's trying to produce clothing out of fabric. We don't run fabric here. We got leather. So let's make that out of leather. And now let's tell our export depot that we don't want to export anymore. But what we want to export now is meat. So I want to export meat whenever we're above, like, let's say 30% of our stockpile. We've got so much food. Meat is only at a sales price of 2, but it's one of our overproductions, so we can ride with that. Also, as you see here, our workforce is now at -2. That's a bad thing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to disable the carpenter's shop for now. You can do that by just pressing here, and the activation is then turned off. Now we got ourselves a woodcutter. 3 people are now working here tirelessly to produce wood automated. We don't need to allocate that stuff by hand anymore. Good stuff, isn't it? So there's, although now a big issue, there is not really much that we can do from here on. Most buildings that were accessible for us are already built. We don't have access to many things. I could now go for a weaver and set up some cotton production and produce my clothing out of cotton instead of leather, but that doesn't really get us anywhere. What we need now, you might already have guessed it, is, as soon as I find it, well, knowledge, the library. So the library is where we research stuff at. So we're going to get ourselves into that direction because that's where the fertility dropped. And we're going to set up ourselves a small little library here. Keep in mind that right now I'm just plastering down buildings left and right. This is not how you ought to do it ideally, but since this is a beginner's guide, I'll do it just like I think a beginner would do it. Usually in my personal runs, I do much more planning in where I want to have what in a city. We're going to talk about that later on. I just wanted to mention that here I'm just placing down stuff for the sake of placing it down, and that's okay. You can reuse and reshape your city, no biggie. So we're going to set up a scribe station for 2 workers here, and the shelves are increasing the efficiency. And the carpets would also increase the efficiency, but the carpets would cost us fabric, which we don't have right now. So let's construct that. So the happiness of my place isn't too high here. That's been a little bit bad, but this will get better now with the tailor, because the tailor is producing clothing, and the more clothing is available for our people, the happier they'll get. Because clothing is, as you might have already guessed it, a basic need of people. So the more clothing they have, the happier they'll get. So the library can't get any more progress because we don't have any furniture. So we're going to disable the woodcutter for now. Sadly, I don't have the necessary workforce for that. Re-enable the carpenter, and we collect wood now classically, manually. It's pretty annoying we're not there yet, but we're gonna get there. So right now, as you see here, when you right-click that, here you see how happy and how loyal your people are. This happiness bar is where it's mostly readable how close you are to get another villager. As you see here, there's lots of red dots, so environment went down, services went down, food went a bit down, but all in all, it's not enough to lure more people in here. It's also a reason why I want to have a library as quick as possible. So, because of that insane food production, we might also consider either shutting down the fruit farm entirely or shutting down the hunter, depending on our preferences. But let's just wait until the library is done. That'll take a couple of days because the carpenters are working as fast as they can, but that's not particularly fast. Let's fell some more trees here in between. Or, you know what? Well, no. I wanted to employ one dude here into the woodcutter station, but then I realized that if one person is woodcutting, nobody does the hauling, so we can't change that. So, sadly, we'll have to sit it out for now. But that's a pretty normal thing to happen in this game. The early game is always kind of a slow crawl. And as you see here, another thing is happening, our buildings are looking more and more shabby. That's because they're degrading. We can avoid that by creating ourselves a janitor. So let's do that. A janitor is going to provide renovations for your entire city. And the best thing, it doesn't really cost much. So what we're going to do now is to get some more workforce. I'm going to reduce the amount of employees on the fruit farm down to 2. We don't need that much food. We're totally oversupplied with food, so let's rather put that workforce into something else useful. Maybe this way we can even employ the woodcutters again, but we don't need them either right now. As you see here, it's really easy to plan your stuff a little bit wrong, and that's mostly because of the complexity of the game, but don't hound yourself for that. There's plenty of time and plenty of opportunity to get the ball rolling for you. So as you see here now, we got now a janitor, and if you mark that, all these red spots, that's stuff that needs to be repaired, and that's stuff that will be repaired now. So we can't really speed up things except for we don't want slaves right now, except for producing more furniture. But the other thing you could do in that situation would be also just to decide, I'll import furniture. So we're going to say, we're just going to import that stuff. Boom. Importing is a very, very powerful tool, and the only downside of that is it takes quite some time until the stuff is delivered. Because as you see here now, we have the money, We just now have to wait until the next trade caravan comes to town. But we got the library constructed. Wonderful. So, for the time being, I'll just let the carpenter do his thing, and we'll let everybody do his thing. Now we got the library-man. So, right now we only got one employee there. Let's make that 2. Oh, I'm at -1. So, the janitor is on auto-employ. This means the AI is allowed to pick up people as it sees fit to get the job done. Early on, I highly recommend you to keep the janitor only on 1 employee because you don't need that. So, library produces knowledge. Knowledge is used to unlock new technologies, but that's something we'll do in the next episode. For now, we can summarize that we got ourselves a nice little outpost, which is able to produce its own furniture, produce its own clothing, produce more than enough food for itself. We totally overproduced there. We're actually successfully exporting food. We could also consider exporting fruit there as well. So we're really set in that regard. In the next episode, we'll start sciencing stuff. And that means we're going to expand into new buildings, new services, which allow us to make the city bigger, and I'm looking forward to that. So drop me your comments down below, leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and of course consider subscribing. There's daily content coming up from my side, and I'd love to have you. See you guys next time, and have a good day. Bye-bye.